продолжаем вторую часть нашего круглого стола, посвященного духовным практикам повседневной жизни. У нас нет еще Владислава Виногрудского и Раджиша Далала. И я хочу представить также вам двух представителей женской половины человечества. Светлана Дороганич. Светлана член президиума Ассоциации трансперсональной психологии и психотерапии России, членов комитета. И Светлана мастер кундалини-йоги, и она основатель дельфинотерапии в России. С помощью энергии дельфинов она лечит детишек. Ну и взрослых, конечно, тоже. Вместе со Стюартом Саватским она ведет программу по интегральной йоге. И я хотел также представить еще одну замечательную женщину, которая учится в Калифорнийском институте интегральных исследований, CIS. Can you present yourself?
My name is Andrea Fisher. I'm studying transpersonal psychology through Academic University on the Big Island. And I said to Vladimir, I do not see female representation, and he called this a conscious revolution. So, thank you.
Я также хочу вам сказать, что, если вы заметили, эта конференция сделана в основном усилиями женской половины человечества. Если вы посмотрите наших волонтеров, а также тех, кто делает конференции, то за исключением небольшого количества мужчин, которые занимаются технической работой, у нас в основном все делается на энергии женщин. Так что поаплодируем им. И, конечно же, без этого партнерства эта конференция была бы невозможным. Я уже говорил о том, что главный партнер Ассоциации трансперсональной психологии и психотерапии по этому конгрессу — это Центр ЛОФТ, возглавляемый Ксенией Кулешовой. И без ее поддержки, особенно на начальных стадиях, когда у нас не было никаких денег, никакой энергии, мы даже не смогли бы начать. А сейчас давайте продолжим, и прежде чем мы перейдем к практическим частям, я хочу дать слово нашим замечательным женщинам, чтобы они также поделились своим пониманием духовности.
Well, I believe it's a personal experience, and the reason why I got into transpersonal psychology studies is because of my own personal having to overcome my own false truths. Pain and suffering has been a very great teacher. I would say I have a PhD in self-hatred. I understand it very well, and I have gleaned many gifts from all that I've learned. So, between spirituality and religion, from what I've learned so far in my studies, is that men have created religion. I have not read about any woman creating religion. I'm aware that what was described as paganism was women understanding their intuition. So as far as religion is concerned, I believe that it was created by men, for them to experience their God self. And spirituality to me has come about more through personal experience of how you bring the essence of what is God, Spirit. To me, these are one and the same. And how do you celebrate that in your day-to-day life? I was bursting out of my skin, sitting in this row, and not having a woman under it. That was beyond me, because I'm not comfortable talking talking on a microphone being up here. But there's something much more powerful than saying, we must be heard. I must come up here, and I must represent every woman that has come before me and that is here today. So spirituality, one thing we all have in common is we were birthed through a woman. So for all of these men to be on the stage, they came through a female. So here we are here. Spirituality to me is embracing the God-given essence of who you are in your day-to-day life, being very present with every human being that you interact with, and using your heart, bringing love way before anything else. We can get stuck in the mind and intellectualize spirituality and begging you to go with love. That to me is spirit.
Спасибо, я очень благодарна за то, что меня пригласили сюда. И мне бы хотелось сказать о том, что я родилась в состоянии любви. И оно присутствовало всегда в моей жизни. Я была желанным ребенком, и когда я пришла в этот мир, меня назвали Светланой, что значит свет. И всегда моя бабушка, которой было уже на момент моего рождения очень много лет, и она родилась еще в начале прошлого века, и она всегда говорила, что Светочка у нас от Бога взятая. Поэтому вот эта духовность, которая была изначально в моей семье и в том окружении, которое было вокруг меня, та природа, то состояние души, которое мне давала моя мать, которое мне давала моя бабушка, тот дух религии, изначальной религии, без фанатизма, сказочный, необыкновенно красивый, он всегда так же был в моей жизни. И для меня до сих пор Бог — это доброта, Бог — это тот, кто принимает меня в этот мир. У меня никогда не было чувства отверженности в детстве. Возможно, что-то стало более сложное происходить в моей жизни потом. Но до сих пор у меня есть присутствие во мне того, что любовь, она изначальна. И я считаю, что задача каждой женщины — дать вот эту любовь своим дочерям, своим сыновьям, своим детям, всему тому, что окружает их. И возможно, что вот тот свет, тот смысл, ту любовь я нашла в других существах очень похожих на людей, дельфинах. И дельфины также исцеляют любовью. И мой друг однажды, путешествуя по миру, нашел на Сейшельских островах икону. Икона эта небольшая, она стояла у подножья статуи Пресвятой Богородицы. Пресвятая Богородица — это православная церковь Девы Марии. И на этой иконе был изображен дельфин, у лона которого был младенец. И это дало мне и, возможно, тем людям, которые смотрели также на эту икону, потому что я сфотографировала, дало возможность говорить о том, что дельфин есть материнская основа Вселенной. Это символ, который дает возможность уберечь дитя, уберечь человечество, уберечь наш мир. И задача матери, я мать, я бабушка уже, задача матери, бабушки, женщины в том, чтобы сохранить, сберечь, стать, знаете, таким домом, такой, может быть, большой маткой для всех тех, кто рядом, для всех тех, кто нуждается в нашей помощи.
Спасибо. Нам не хватало ваших голосов. Спасибо за помощь. И сейчас мы сможем перейти уже к обсуждению практических аспектов о том, как духовность проявляется в практике, прежде всего, в ежедневной практике, в разных традициях. Наверное, сущностная часть практики – это установление и наполнение всем собой связь тебя с высшим источником, с Богом, с Дао, с тем неописуемым, единым, Всевышним, основой всего. И очень часто главной практикой для установления связи является практика молитвы. Но мы, как живущие в православной России, хорошо знаем важность Иисусовой молитвы для традиции, скажем, святоотеческой традиции России. И все, наверное, хорошо знают знаменитую книгу «Откровенные рассказы странника духовному своему отцу», в которой описывается практика постижения молитвы. И православная молитва, она характеризуется прежде всего тем, что через нее устанавливается энергийное единство с Высшим. В молитве ты обращаешься к Высшему, посылая туда все свое мольбу, все свое желание, всю свою энергию. И Высший Источник, Бог, откликается тебе, посылая благодать, свет Каворский. И в зоне, где встречается твоей энергии и энергии Бога, возникает пространство единения в энергии, синергии. В восточных традициях сходные по смыслу сердечной молитвы мы можем найти в индуизме, Ом Намо Шивая, и смысл ее очень близок к Иисусовой молитве православных старцев. Или в традиции, скажем, тибетской тантры, тибетского буддизма чрезвычайно важно, а в некоторых традициях, такие как Дзogchen, центральное место занимает практика гуру-йоги, то есть объединение полного, объединение с гуру. И вот я хотел бы, чтобы наши глубоко уважаемые участники, мастера традиции, эксперты высказались по практике молитвы.
Да, я вот хотел как раз сказать следующее. Богородица, Дева, радуйся, благодатная Мария, Господь с тобой, благословенна ты и жена, и благословен чрево твоего, яко спас родила, неси душ наших, во имя Отца и Сына, и Духа Святого, и ныне и присно, и во веки веков. Аминь.
Относительно духовных практик в нашей традиции, традиции индийского суфизма, который, наверное, в начале 20 века привез на Запад, в Россию, есть такое интересное наблюдение. Он говорит, что практика, духовная практика отчасти сводится к очищению ума. Когда ум чист, он подобно озеро, гладкой поверхности озера, начинает четко и ясно отображать то, что происходит вокруг. И это дает человеку понимание. И первая ступень – это контроль над телом, то есть пребывание в определенной позе. Второй важный элемент – это контроль за дыханием. Что несет дыхание, какие состояния человек наблюдает за собой, за своим состоянием, за состоянием своего дыхания. Но тут интересно и парадоксально, и Найхан добавляет, что можно 1000 лет просидеть в какой-то позе, 2000 лет дышать и не достичь никаких результатов. Почему? Потому что необходим третий компонент – это отношения. Если у человека нет правильного отношения к миру, гармоничного отношения к миру, к самому себе, к окружающим, то отдельно взятые практики, отдельно взятые техники, вырванные из контекста, из эстетического оправдания, из морального, духовного, социального обрамления, эти практики не дадут правильных результатов. И поэтому вот это вот отношение, намощение мыслями о Боге, созерцание Бога через красоту. Как в Коране написано, что Бог красив, и Он любит красоту. И со времен персидского суфизма существует практика созерцания Бога вокруг нас через красоту, через красивых людей, красивые цветы, через чудесные какие-то замечательные предметы, произведения искусства. И когда такое настрой ума устанавливается, уже отдельно взятые практики, они начинают работать. И последнее, что я хотел бы сказать, тоже очень важный элемент, с которым я сам занимаюсь уже почти 35 лет, и много людей, со многими людьми я был знаком. И вот совсем недавно, несколько лет назад, я понял, как написано в Евангелии, было о том, когда Христос говорит своим апостолам: будьте просты, как голуби, и мудры, как змеи. Это парадоксальное выражение, потому что человек мудрый, искушенный, который все видит, все понимает, наблюдает за всем, он часто не прост. И он такой немножко кислотный, такой весь потравленный вот этим своим анализом окружающего, самоанализом. А с другой стороны, люди простые, наивные, они постоянно попадают в какие-то ситуации неприятные. Вот. И именно необходимо вот это вот развитие этих двух качеств. Как бы простоты и наивности с одной стороны, но она должна быть уравновешена мудростью. Потому что без мудрости тогда вот человек будет все время, так сказать, оступаться.
Even though I am monk of the Western Church, of the Benedictine tradition in the Western Church, as I said, I had the great privilege in our monastery. We are very much influenced also by the Eastern Church. We have all read The Way of a Pilgrim, and we all study all the time the Philokalia, and we venerate icons, and we even learn this beautiful music, and on many occasions we sing not in Gregorian chant of the West, but in the Eastern chant. We have learned to sing that for certain occasions. We often have heard the story that I think it was in Kiev when St. Vladimir wanted to turn to Christianity, and then he invited monks from the Byzantine Church and monks from the Eastern Roman Church, and they were performing services for him. And when we heard the chanting of the Western Church, which we normally practice, he said this was the most beautiful thing he ever heard on earth. And then when the Byzantine sang, he said this was not from earth, that was from heaven. And when we here on this trip several times we heard the Eastern monks chant, and I could say that too, this was from heaven. So I have really the best of both traditions, and I'm very grateful for it. And we also practice the Jesus prayer, and that connects with what you said about the breath. And that opens it up to everybody. If you have any tradition of prayer, then you know how important the breath is. But if you have no tradition of prayer, if you have not had the good luck to be introduced to prayer in any form, then you can discover that your very breathing is prayer, because with every breath that you take in life, and trust yourself to life, that there is something that will support you, and then with every breath that you give out, you give yourself to life. So the breath is really the very life, and as Christina said the other day, God is the breath within our breath. And so this is the accent of everybody, not just monks, but everybody, to what prayer really in its deepest meaning is.
before I talk about spiritual practices in daily life, I would like to take up a point made by the lady speakers. In our tradition, the idea of a male god, exclusively male god, sounds contradictory. We always have, whenever we worship the feminine as well as the masculine. We have Parvati, Shiva Parvati, Shankar, we have Sita Ram, we have Radha Krishna. We always have the feminine first and the masculine later. And in fact, the Nataraja, the great image that you see, the so-called dancing Shiva, combines the feminine and the masculine. One earring is feminine, the other is masculine, and ultimately they merge into an icon known as Ardhanarishwara, where half the body is male and half the body is female. So I'm just making this point that in Hinduism particularly, there is an androgyny, a divine androgyny, shall we say, and therefore simply to worship a being that is only male is foreign to our tradition. That's just a point I'd like to put on the table. Now, with regard to spiritual practices in daily life, we have 4 main yogas. And I think that each one of them needs to be integrated in our daily life. We have the Jnana Yoga, which is the way of wisdom. That is the way of clarifying the mind, of discriminating between the real and the unreal. That is the way, for example, of the Socratic dialogues, of trying to understand the reality behind the images. That is essentially a clarification of the mind. There is a Bhakti Yoga, the way of devotion, and that is where the prayers come in, that is where the saints come in, that is where you give yourself in total love and dedication to the divine, to whatever image of the divine. It could be Shiva, it could be Jesus, it could be anybody else, but it needs an opening of the heart chakra. It needs a total dedication and devotion and surrender to the God. Then you have the third is the Karma Yoga, is yoga through works, the way of works. Because everybody has to do something in life, whether you're a professor, whether you're a housewife, whatever you may be doing. If that something can be done in an attitude of dedication and devotion to the divine, then that work itself becomes a potent means of spiritual development. And then the fourth way is Raja Yoga, which is the royal path. That is the way of breathing, that is the way of the Kundalini, that is the way of trying to access the hidden powers that exist in every human body. Now my view is that each one of us should have each of these 4 practices in our daily life. We have the Jnana Yoga, I try and read the Upanishads. We have the Bhakti Yoga, I carry my rosary with me with the Om Namah Shivaya. I have the Karma Yoga, is what I'm doing here. I'm sitting here and doing something which hopefully is going to be helpful. And the Raja Yoga is what you do particularly in your morning and evening prayer. So I would say that spiritual practices have to be melded, have to be integrated into our daily activities. It's not as if you keep half an hour or 1 hour for the divine and 23 hours for yourself. If you are really on the path, you're going to try and integrate every single minute of your life in your divine.
I think it's important to understand that spiritual practices and spiritual practice in and of itself is only as powerful as the intention of the individual who is performing them. So once again, spiritual practice or spiritual practices are only as powerful as the intention of the individual who is performing them. Often when I give a lecture, when I travel around the world and I give lectures, often people will become very inspired. They will experience tremendous inspiration and they will say, how do I do it? Tell me what I need to do. what practice should I do? I said, well, you have to want it more than anything else. You have to want it more than anything else. So for example, the great Indian yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, who came to America in the early 20th century, was a practitioner of Kundalini Yoga and Raja Yoga. And he really brought this the ancient Indian science of Raja Yoga, and he really taught it to the masses. And he said, if you practice this technique of meditating on your chakras and bringing the energy up to your brain, he said, you will have easier access to spiritual enlightenment than you can imagine. Now, it's interesting to find that since Yogananda taught, he hasn't produced any disciple that had the power of his own enlightenment. And when we read in his great book, Autobiography of Yoga, about his childhood, when he was initiated into the practice of Raja Yoga and Kundalini Yoga, he used to practice hours and hours and hours every day. He was mad for God. He had a passionate inspiration that was above average. It wasn't ordinary. He really, really wanted to become an enlightened human being. When he was practicing, he felt he could never practice enough. So he was bringing the intensity of his intention to his aspiration to become an enlightened person. And it was the intensity of his inspiration which gave the particular practice he was doing power. And it resulted in an extraordinary, dramatic transformation that ultimately had an effect on millions of people all over the world, and is continuing to this day. The Buddha, who practiced vipassana meditation, which is the meditation on the breath, sat under the Bodhi tree, and he said, I'm not going to stand up. I'm not going to get up from this meditation until I become enlightened. I will not get up until I become enlightened. It's a very powerful intention. How many people have that kind of intention that when I sit down to meditate, I'm not going to get up until I'm enlightened? Most people are looking at their watch. Is the hour over yet? So, now, since the time of the Buddha, of course, 2,500 years ago, millions of people, millions and millions of people, and now also in the West, have practiced the great Vipassana meditation that the Buddha taught. But of all the millions of people who do that particular form of practice, it's very rare to get the result that he did. But I think that the reason that the Buddha had that extraordinary result of his own profound enlightenment that we're all still feeling the reverberations from, had to do with the power of his own intention. His own intention. Once when I was in Jerusalem, I met a wonderful, very holy man. He was a rabbi. I was told he was an extraordinary person, and when I met him, he demonstrated and manifested a kind of humility that was breathtaking. His humility was almost unbearable to behold. But it was, he was almost like a man without skin. But I was told that when he did his prayers that would ordinarily take people about 20 minutes, took him 2 or 3 days. So when the Jewish holy day, the Jewish Sabbath was over on Saturday, he was still found to be doing the Sabbath prayers on Tuesday morning. So his commitment and the intensity of his concentration was extraordinary. His intention and his commitment is what I feel empowered the prayer that he was doing to yield a dramatic result. So for example, in the same way, in Eastern Orthodox Christianity, there are many people that practice the prayer of the heart. But the mere practice of the prayer of the heart in and of itself is not what's going to yield the result. It has to do with the intention of the practitioner. So it's not the particular form of practice necessarily that we choose or that we're attracted to. It has to do with the intention of the individual behind the practice and the prayer that's going to yield the result. And so I think the way to really think about this has to do with how far do I want to go? And ultimately, I feel that spiritual practice is a meditation and consideration of infinity. So deep and profound prayer, deep and profound meditation, and serious spiritual practice is really about the contemplation and meditation on the nature of no limitation or infinity. And the question is, how much does each and every one of us as individuals want infinity, no limitation whatsoever? To what degree do we want all boundaries to fall away? And when we engage with whatever our chosen form of spiritual practice is, with that kind of commitment and that kind of intensity, then I don't really think it matters whether it's the prayer of the heart, whether it's the practice of Kundalini Yoga, whether it's the Buddhist form of Vipassana meditation, whether it is Taoist internal energy work. The result will be dramatic, or even, of course, if we practice, for example, Jnana Yoga, if we're really looking into what spiritual enlightenment is from the perspective of philosophical paradox. If we're really, how deeply do we look into questions? How important is it us to really know what's true? And so it's in the intensity of our own interest in our own liberation that's going to really ultimately carry us to beyond the shore. It's not any particular practice. The practices are not really the issue. They are the boat, but their power really is ultimately dependent only on our own intention to go all the way.
It is very auspicious that we all have interest or know about transpersonal.
Это очень благоприятный, хороший день для того, чтобы узнать о большей трансперсональной психологии.
We have come in this world
Все мы пришли в этот мир
in the same way
одним и тем же путем.
the universe has come.
Таким же, каким весь этот универс, вся Вселенная пришла, существовала. И это есть большая и серьезная система или наука. Потому что это есть нисхождение от высшего сознания до низшего сознания. Когда мы спускаемся, когда это снисходит, это есть научная система, это процесс. И все это не совсем просто. Ваше тело это не простая какая-то вещь, ваш ум это не простая вещь. Ваша мысль, ваша сила воли, ваша сила мысли это очень могущественные вещи. Если вы можете использовать свой ум, если вы можете постичь это, потому что вся наука была изобретена, все науки были изобретены умом. Вся духовность, все религии были изобретены именно умом. И если вы чувствуете это, если вы можете анализировать себя и понимать, что все, что вы делаете в этом мире, все это есть энергия. Вы трансформируете, изменяете каждую энергию посредством. У вас есть энергия тела, энергия ума, энергия сознания. Все это было создано в этом мире. Чтобы помогайте людям, чтобы помогать всему этому созданию.
You can use all of your center
Вы можете использовать все ваши центры,
for the healing others.
чтобы помогать или лечить хилингом, заниматься хилингом других,
In this world,
чтобы увеличивать человечность этого мира.
because all is centralized as a certain energy within yourself.
Потому что все это централизуется внутри вас, все энергии централизованы внутри вас. Вы не есть только одно лишь тело,
We have many bodies,
у вас есть много разных тел.
and it has taken a time to create within yourself.
И для создания их потребовалось время.
All is originated from inside.
Но все это имеет источник внутри вас.
Your body is a great temple.
Ваше тело – это великий храм.
It has many things within yourself.
Это содержит в себе много разных вещей внутри себя.
It has a great treasure within yourself.
Это скрывает великое сокровище внутри вас.
You have the collective thoughts.
У вас есть сила коллективной мысли,
You have the universal mind.
у вас есть универсальный вселенский
You
ум,
have your personal energy, personal mind.
у вас есть ваш личный ум, ваши личные энергии.
What center you want to travel to outside?
В любую точку, куда вы хотите пропутешествовать снаружи,
You can develop, you can practice.
вы можете практиковать это, вы можете развить это.
Body is a system, mind is a system, consciousness is a system.
Тело – это система, ум – это система, сознание – это тоже система.
It is coordinated by the nature
И все это координировано природой,
to cooperate with humanities.
чтобы помогать человечеству.
You can energize any center from through the nature
Вы можете наполнять энергией любой центр через природу, через силы природы,
to the humanities
и вы можете использовать это для человечества,
to remove the suffering to heal the people.
чтобы убрать страдания, чтобы помогать людям.
But you have to think that all it is a belonging.
Но вы должны прекрасно понимать, что это всего лишь принадлежность, ваша принадлежность.
It is your belonging.
Все, что вы используете, это все лишь ваша принадлежность.
And you are not that.
А вы сами не это.
So if you come back to yourself,
Поэтому, если вы вернетесь к себе самому истинному,
you practice how to separate yourself.
если вы будете практиковать, как отделить себя истинного от всего, что не вы,
How to use your centers
если вы будете практиковать, как использовать все ваши
to
центры,
make use of humanities
чтобы использовать это для пользы, для блага всего человечества,
and to live as an enlightened person.
и чтобы жить как просветленный человек.
Transpersonal,
Трансперсональное,
not only can transfer the energy,
это может трансперсональное, оно может не только трансформировать энергию,
not only can heal the other people,
не только заниматься хилингом и помощью другим людям,
you can try to bring harmony in the world.
не только может быть использовано для привнесения гармонии в этот мир,
They have courage
это также имеет возможность
to go beyond all these things,
выйти за пределы всего этого,
to understand, to analyze, to experience this self.
чтобы понять, чтобы постичь, чтобы познать вашу истинную суть, вашу истинную сущность. Если вы находитесь внутри себя истинным, со своим истинным бытием, тогда вы становитесь Иисусом Христом, тогда вы становитесь как Будда, тогда вы становитесь Махавиром. И вы становитесь просветленным. И тогда жизнь становится очень полезной для всего человечества. Спасибо.
My comment is going to be in two parts. The first part, I would like to look at practices. Various practices, both of the East and the West, and the various ways in which these practices are actually utilized by human beings and their value. In the second part, I would like to talk about no practice, which is actually a profound perception. It doesn't mean not practicing. It's a profound perception which puts all practices in their right place. When practices go out of control, when they are not understood for what they actually are, they can create vanity, they can create illusion, and they can actually take us away from the deepest purpose for which we may have initiated the practice. So I would like to speak about practice and no practice. It's a well-known fact that countless practices have come up in different parts of the world. And all over the world, human beings are practicing. Not only so-called spiritual practices. Practice is a natural thing in life. We have washing practices, how we wash our clothes. We have practices of cooking. We have practices of child rearing. Life is about doing things. And in doing things, we find different ways of doing things. Some ways seem to work better for the kind of intention that we have. So practices, first of all, I think we must understand, are by their very nature individual. Each individual, depending on his circumstances, depending on his temperament, depending on his or her particular needs, needs to create some kind of a practice. I'm glad Andrew brought the issue of the intention behind the practice of the practitioner. I would like to add that there is also the intention of the creator of the practices. So these practices have been created. They haven't just descended from some God knows heaven. They have been created by minds, by people who have gone deep into things, and they have different implications. To treat all practices in the same manner, my own feeling is that that would be a mistake. There are practices which are primarily focusing on concentration. They are concentration practices. They are meant to bring about a certain result where you achieve a power. And wherever achievement is important, concentration and cultivation and development of concentration becomes inevitable and very important. Our whole society today, especially the Western world, has focused on concentration and is focused on results. Now this result orientation, which has a place and yet it has a limitation. If the mind becomes completely result oriented, it loses a certain space, an expanse from where it can get guidance, can get direction to whatever it does. So to put results in its right place is very crucial if what we are wanting from a practice is to happen. And there are practices which are contemplative in nature, and there are practices which are based on awareness. So we need to really study these practices and what they are actually all about, and see what we are all about and what is our deepest intention. Especially if our deepest intention is to be totally free. And I think, though not at the conscious level, consciously we have different kind of intentions. But it seems to me that deep down, in the deepest depths of the human being, there is a seed, there is an urge to discover something vast. And I would like to speak to that seed now, when I speak of no practice. No practice is a profound perception. It goes beyond all theories and beyond all practices. What it means is that life is so vast that it can't be the result of any practice. In fact, life was there before the practice, any practice. Life was there during the practice, and life will continue in its vastness beyond any result which any practice will give you. So So, unless the practice is connected to this profound perception of no practice, practice has a tendency to become all important. You get attached to the practice, you get identified with the practice in the hope that this is going to bring you some great enlightenment of the truth of life. I think we need to very seriously question whether truth, life, love are the result of any doing. No doing, no activity can hold that vastness in its entirety. So this is one aspect of what I mean by no practice. No practice also means no thought and no time. Practice implies a theory on which the practice is based, a thought, an understanding. But we are talking of no theory, no practice, no thought, no understanding. No practice, some people have said, is the highest practice. What we are talking about, I hope we are listening to it, and just because it tends to or appears to be very alien, appears to be not something within our experience or our grasp, please I'm not asking you to agree with this. Please don't disagree with it. Please bring a mind which is not of agreements and disagreements. Just listen. There is something profound which cannot be a result of any practice. It is beyond thought. It is beyond time. Practice implies time. Practice implies some kind of a beginning with a hope to reach somewhere. Practice, you can see in practice, practice can become mechanical. Practice can bring a certain kind of doubt whether my practice is right for me, not right for me. So practice is still within the field of thought, time and limitation. Unless you get the spirit, the sense of that life is vast, beyond all practice. Once you get that, then practice is safe. Practice then has its right place. Then you can practice, you can change your practice, you can deepen your practice and get the whatever benefits those practice has to give you. Thank you.
Before I answer the question, I wanted to acknowledge I'm up here to represent my sisters, and at the same time I want to acknowledge my love, respect, and honor for my brothers. Okay, with that said, I wanted to touch upon the question through my own transpersonal experience on prayer. I was born into the Catholic faith, and having learned self-hatred and unworthiness, my religion fed into feeling as if I was a sinner, feeling unworthy, and praying to this God outside of myself. And my religion was not serving what I desired most in life, but I did not realize I had that inner desire until much later in life when Paramahansa Yogananda came into my life through reading the autobiography of a yogi. And he lit such a fire within me that I was one of those people that day and night, all I wanted to become was an avatar. so driven by his words. I fell so deeply in love with his eyes, and I had that burning desire that he spoke about from his masters. I began to pray so intensely. I spent 2 hours every morning and 2 hours every night following every single thing he had laid out, because I believed, there's nothing greater in life than to become an avatar, and he has it all laid out here, so I'm going to follow the steps explicitly, and I'm going to give it my all. Well, as I did that, my prayer was so deep and so intense, every single thing in my life began to change, and I did not like that. My personal birth family pulled away from me as I was led into I was led into psychotherapy to deal with unresolved issues and all of these false identities. So in order to move closer to this God that I thought was outside of me, I had to deal with all of that darkness, all of the delusion within myself that kept this so far from me. My prayer was so intense that every single thing in my life changed. I found myself pretty much deserted. People did not like what was the changes I was making. They couldn't accept, or I was unaccepting of myself. But the more I saw this something I wanted, I was burning for it. I was on fire for it, and I meditated day and night as much as I possibly could. So what I came to discover is, through my upbringing, my father within my own house was more of God the Father. This assimilation was in my own house. The man was the powerful figure. So I bring a yogi into my life who is a dear friend to my heart, and I make him an authority. And I'm not realizing that I'm looking to become my own authority. I'm looking to become my own master. But I kept praying, and the more I prayed and the more I meditated, the more unusual my life became. I've had many mystical people and situations enter my life, and I had to throw out everything that came before. And in doing that, nothing was comfortable. Everything was uncertain. And I seem to live in this state of uncertainty daily now. And it's a state of trust and faith that I really don't know in the next moment what is to happen, but there's this deeper faith that has been awakened within me with having to look at all the things that were untrue within my own psyche, feeling through the pain of believing that, the pain I caused any person in my life for believing that, the projections on those in my life, and how I imprisoned myself. So as I was initiated into Kriya Yoga, which Yogananda actually did not teach Kundalini or Raja, he passed down the lineage from Babaji of Kriya Yoga. And my world exploded at that point, and I found myself in a vacant home with absolutely nobody or nothing, and very little will to live. I thought twice about praying anymore, but to get to the end of this, because I'm not here to bore anybody, but I feel that it's our transpersonal experience, and for each one of us, it's a personal experience. And through my deep prayer, it led me to other traditions, and which included Native American, and I found through their celebration, this honoring of Mother Earth spoke deeply to me. I was brought through the Egyptian mystery schools, and there was great wisdom that I retrieved there, as well as in the Peruvian Andes. So for each of us, your longing, your intention, how deeply do you want to become full, whole, and complete within yourself? How deep is your prayer? How committed are you to knowing who you really are? And regardless of anybody around you and how they're living, you become your own leader and you become deeper within your own compassion to say, hey, I'm not like them, but it's okay. But I don't have to keep following somebody else. So I believe your prayer is personally, my prayer is to live an authentic life, to be as real as I can, and to bring forward the love within my heart and share that in all of my experiences the best that I can. Thank you.
Я чрезвычайно признателен всем выдающимся участникам круглого стола. Конечно, каждый из участников смог бы провести многодневный семинар и конгресс по этой теме духовной практики в повседневной жизни. Но мы живем во времени, и время нашего круглого стола уже закончилось. Сейчас 11:50. Конечно, не все голоса, не все точки зрения были представлены. И, безусловно, есть еще много духовных традиций, религий, которые имеют свои взгляды. Но, как я думаю, ясно из наших выступлений, истина всегда за пределами слова. Истина в самой жизни, истина в целостном понимании и применении этого в жизни. Это и есть, наверное, самая высшая духовная практика. Еще раз большое вам спасибо. Спасибо вам, глубоко уважаемые кинологи. Мы продолжаем конгресс в корпусе Альфа. Там начинается Split Keynote Sessions, 4 сессии ключевых докладчиков. И после, во время обеденного ланча, организационный комитет приглашает кейноутов на второй этаж в столовой. Только кейноутов. У нас там будет собрание кейноутов за ланчем, кейноут-ланч. И еще одно маленькое, но очень важное объявление. Ричард уже подготовил аудио и видеозаписи конгресса. И этажом ниже вы можете уже получить их, те, кто заказывал, а также заказать аудио и видеозаписи конгресса. Пожалуйста, Ричард. И вы можете заказать те записи, которые будут сегодня, завтра и все дни конгресса. Большое вам спасибо.
Сложно научиться так. Все? Сложно так научиться. Ой, не спрашивайте. Легка. Нет, да? Я гораздо стекаю, да? Как блатного
Да.